Hello everyone, I am Nathan P. Butler, author of A Saga on Home Video. This is my Star Wars, usually, vlog, the voice of reason or lack thereof. And because people have been asking, this is my sort of breakdown and thoughts on the two Solo, a Star Wars story, trailers, or teasers, or teaser for a you know what? I'll get into that later, and it's going to break my brain all over again. But my thoughts on the two previews that we got for Solo, a Star Wars story, here at the beginning of February 2018. Now, the way that I'm going to do this is, the first thing I'm going to do is spin the computer and the webcam and everything around to face the opposite direction so we can actually see the TV that's in my Star Wars office. It's not very impressive, but hey, at least there's a TV in my Star Wars office. There's a little bit of room for one of those. And I'll spin it around so that basically I can play the trailer kind of off to the side, hopefully in such a way that's not going to have YouTube going nuts over, this is copyrighted audio, or, there's a copyrighted picture there, because I'm basically playing it on a television screen next to me. And I'll pause it from time to time to give some thoughts, give some commentary, and then kick it back up and go through it. And we'll do first the Super Bowl spot, and then we'll do the regular teaser, although a lot of the footage they have in it is similar. And then once that's done, I'll spin it back around and go into some of my other general thoughts on it before we wrap things up here for this vlog. So first, let's spin it around and let's check out the Super Bowl teaser. The teaser for the teaser, so to speak. Alright, so I've spun it around. Let's take a look at the teaser here, and then we'll take a look at the trailer. Honestly, there's so much going on in the trailer, we may actually wind up going through the trailer twice, but I pretty much can guarantee we're going to go through that one twice. But let's check out the teaser. A little bit less stuff in it, so we'll shoot through it once. And most of my commentary will be within the regular trailer because there's more going on and some of the stuff does overlap, of course. So, for those who are wondering, I am playing this on a PlayStation 3 with the YouTube app onto the television here. I'll add a little behind-the-scenes type thing later in the video, near the end, for those who are interested, to let you know what's going on with, what this side of the Star Wars office looks like and what kind of stuff is set up over here. But I figured that's not something we need for everybody because most people aren't going to be interested unless you're regular, long-time viewers of the channel. So let's check out the Super Bowl teaser, the teaser for Solo.
So you want to make a difference? Yeah. Trust me, you're going to love it. And which branch are you interested in joining? Yeah, the pilot.
Okay, sorry, Han, but pilot isn't a branch of the military. You want, like, Army, Navy, etc. But I'm kind of wondering here, given his costume, we know that there are some Lego sets that show him in Imperial attire, show all the characters kind of in Imperial attire, and it seems like they're going on a mission to Mimban, right from not Shadows of the Empire. Shadows of the Empire has some influence here, but Splinter the Mind's Eye is the one on Mimban, so they're kind of bringing that back from 78. And there's a part of me that wonders here, is he actually trying to get into the Imperial Academy here? Or is this him trying to infiltrate the Academy after having already been kicked out, as we'll see in the next trailer? So, kind of wondering when this takes place. But it's interesting to see sort of their recruitment process at this point from the Imperial side. So you got your bureaucrat there, it's like, yeah, kid, you want to sign up? Sure. What do you want to do? And of course, he's cocky enough to say he's going to be the best pilot out there, right? So, in essence, Han Solo and Anakin Skywalker had a lot in common. I'm going to be the best ever! Alright, let's continue. It's Queen! It's the Falcon! Dig the train. Glad I timed that just right. The train there from Shadows of the Empire, or at least from the same concept as used in Shadows of the Empire, hence my Shadows of the Empire reference there earlier. Oh my God! Lando is in a pimp coat. We'll talk about that in the next trailer when we're talking more about Lando's character, but Lando's in a pimp coat. that last shot there, before the one after the image where it shows them from behind. From behind, it could be anybody. But there's that one shot, kind of through the bars or whatever, where they're asking his name. And you got kind of the beat-up, scarred Solo there, which is our real first clear view of him there. Notice we get shots of the Falcon, but no clear shots to actually see what the front of it looks like in this one. But it strikes me that a lot of my friends were like, oh my gosh, I don't know if it was CG or just great lighting, but holy crap, he looks exactly like Harrison Ford in that shot where they're asking his name. Were you watching the same teaser that I was watching, if you said that? Because that sure as hell didn't seem at all like Harrison Ford to me. It looks like the actor who's actually playing him this time, Alden Ehrenreich. Are you sure this is the teaser you were talking about? But yes, because those were all reactions before the other one dropped the next day. Alright, that's done. Let's do it again, this time for the full trailer, or the full official story teaser as it's being labeled. Let's check it out. The second trailer, of course, dropped on the next day, and they're calling it the official teaser, but I kind of wonder whether this is the teaser and we're going to get a trailer later, or if this is basically the trailer, because usually we get a teaser, then a trailer, but maybe that TV spot during the Super Bowl was the teaser. It's weird to see them released back-to-back, and the teaser we got with the Super Bowl is a little bit longer, it seems like, than usually when we've got a trailer for a trailer, which seems to be the norm. So maybe what we got was a teaser for a teaser, and then the teaser, and then maybe we're going to get a trailer later, maybe with the teaser for the trailer? Or maybe this is the teaser and the trailer, and they're just calling them the TV spot and the teaser. I'm hoping there's at least one more trailer still to come, but honestly, we're in February, and it comes out in May. So we don't have a lot of time for them to do that. They took their sweet time actually putting out any kind of teaser. Probably because of the issues behind production. Anyway, we're going to take a look here at the full version released the very next day, I guess on Good Morning America, but for me, on YouTube, when the little notification popped up on my phone. Gotta love the ability to subscribe on YouTube to get those notifications. In fact, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, you probably should. I know people out there are like, haven't you said it's tacky to ask for subscriptions? Damn right it is. And in this case, I felt the need to be tacky there. Blame Weird Al Yankovic. Gotta love the beat to the buttons being pressed, right?
Scams on the street since I was 10.
Oh! Chronological reference! 10 years! 10 years old! 19 years, BBY!
Flight Academy. For having a mind of my own.
So maybe he was actually an Imperial pilot before in the Academy, like Legends had it?
Hey, kid. I'm putting together a crew.
Okay, what is it with the deserts and the beaches in Star Wars? I know we need to have these natural-looking landscapes there, but we just saw them walking along, basically sand toward a structure of some kind. I mean, really, do we need to see that kind of thing all over again? Is it Tatooine? Is it Jakku? Is it perhaps Scarif? Is it yet another planet with that type of backdrop? Who knows? Kind of gets old after a while. As for Woody Harrelson being in this, I gotta be honest, I was not a big fan of Woody Harrelson to begin with. He was alright on Cheers, didn't really see him in much afterwards, Zombieland and stuff like that, and I was kind of meh on him, and he seemed like he was kind of for a few years in the press there and everything. So I really was not all that excited by Woody Harrelson being in a Star Wars film. But then when we got our 4K TV, I was just looking for 4K movies to watch, and I decided to pick up all of the Hunger Games stuff. And I had given up on the Hunger Games stuff. I hadn't read the books, and I'd only watched the first movie, and the first movie really didn't do it for me. But I'm someone who loves the dystopian stuff, loves the politics gone wrong stuff, and loves the politics within sci-fi at times. So if I had just hung on to the second movie, I would have realized what I realize now, which is it's a fantastic series to watch. So I gave it all a try, really dug it, and actually really liked Woody Harrelson's character as he developed. And you could sort of see the nuances in some aspects of his performance. So I actually think that Woody Harrelson is a better actor than I ever gave him credit for. So I'm cool with seeing him in this. But it is still a little weird to see recognizable actors in Star Wars. You didn't really have that as much with the original trilogy. You get to the prequel trilogy, yes, we've got, for instance, Natalie Portman. We've got Liam Neeson. We've got Ewan McGregor, who was recognizable to a degree at the time, but wasn't this huge, star power type of thing. It wasn't like they were saying, go see this because Natalie Portman or because Liam Neeson. Then we get The Force Awakens, not as much on that type of thing either. We get Rogue One, not as much on that type of thing either. But now we've got this film, and Alden Ehrenreich, I know nothing about. I've never seen anything else that he's been in. But I look at it, I see Woody Harrelson, and I see Emilia Clarke, and I see, Thandie Newton, I guess, is in it as well. And it's just kind of like, they really are going for those big-name people who are immediately recognizable to audiences. I don't know if the star power is going to drive anybody to see it, but I know that for Star Wars fans, this is kind of a shift back to sort of what we saw with the prequels in the sense of recognizable actors showing up, where sometimes we have to sort of overcome our thoughts about the actor to get into the character because we have preconceived notions, whereas if you had seen, say, A New Hope back in 1977 when it was just called Star Wars, you wouldn't have had those preconceived notions, I don't think. More on that in my reaction stuff later, particularly relating to Emilia Clarke. Speaking of which, though, cool outfit. That works. And the droid done in sort of the motion capture thing similar to K2SO. Kind of cool looking, looks almost like Lebo 2D9 from Shadows of the Empire, but not quite.
You in?
Wait a second! They recast Chewbacca! I can't believe it! Oh wait, it's a guy in the suit no matter what. Never mind. Nerd outrage quelled. Not so sure about Ehrenreich. Doesn't really strike me as looking Han-esque, and we'll talk about this a little bit more later, but I think what's going to really kind of make or break this for me is his performance. And here's a guy who is basically, at the time of filming, right around 28, 29 years old, or at the time of movies released, 28, 29 years old-ish, which is basically Han's age in A New Hope. So in order for this to be prior to A New Hope, he's basically having to play a character who is younger than he actually is. We see that a lot. Most teen movies with high school students are actually people much older than high school. Fine. But we need to be able to believe that this guy can transition a few years later into basically being Harrison Ford. I'll get more into that later, but I think that's going to be the thing. And so far, it's not working for me very well. But I'm willing to reserve opinion until after I see the actual film. But, yeah, are you in? Oh, look! Snow! I immediately saw this and thought, is that a purposeful comparison to The Force Awakens and Starkiller Base? Because of the characters being there with the backdrop so recently in another movie with a similar backdrop? Or is it just the fact that, again, like the desert, we're running out of location styles? Let me guess, the next one's gonna be in a forest. To continue.
That's yes.
The only person. Who knows what you really are?
Now that makes me stop and think. I might be the only person, ... who really knows, ... what you really are. We have seen plenty of instances with modern trailers, even for Star Wars, where we've seen lines taken out of context and lines chopped up. And sometimes the chopping up is just that you got a line, and they've removed a little chunk of it to make it more dramatic for the trailer, and the part that was taken out wouldn't have made sense without the context of the movie anyway. Other times, though, we get lines that are put in a trailer that are cut together that make it seem like they're part of the same conversation or even the same sentence when they're really not. So I really wonder, given the breaks in that, is that just pausing for effect in the trailer, or are those really not the same line when it comes to the movie itself? Is it possible that sentence, even with pieces removed, doesn't actually show up in the film? It probably does, but with modern trailers, you never know.
What's that?
That's probably my favorite moment in the whole thing, right there, in terms of this teaser.
Get ready.
Woo!
Thought we were in trouble there for a second, but it's fine. We're fine.
Okay, so let's go back to that. I love that moment there where, assuming that that's actually what she says and that he's responding to that, you go, well, what is it? The fact that he's like, like his expression immediately goes from wisecracking to, oh shit. That, I think, is a very human moment. I think that's exactly what we would expect from Han. It's probably the most Han-esque moment within this. And the fact that we've also got a chance there at the end to see the original, I guess, version of the Falcon as opposed to the new version of the Falcon, right? One of those different configurations that we get in the Millennium Falcon manual. You know what I mean? The Owner's Workshop manual from Haynes that's got the different configurations in it, including the ones that have the container that closes up the front of it and everything. So kind of cool to see that. At least there's some precedent for the weird design of the Falcon in the film. But I'm hoping that what we're seeing here, because we're told that we're going to see the Kessel Run and Kessel in the film, I'm really hoping that's the maw, and that whatever it is they're zipping past is some kind of creature within the maw, and maybe that's the Kessel Run itself. Although, just like I said, that I think that the whole is kind of the most Han moment of that teaser, I think the whole, we're fine, I thought we were in trouble for a second, but we're fine thing, sounds just as wisecracky as Han, but at the same time sounds absolutely nothing like Han, as if Aaron Reich is playing a completely different Han-esque character in that. It's all going to come down to his performance one way or the other. Okay, that's one run through the regular teaser, the full-length one. Let's take another crack at it to get some more ideas out of the way.
I've been running scams on the street since I was 10.
Yep. Kind of cool to see it with different scenes here, though. Interesting that she is with him. Kira is with him in this sequence. Presumably it's Corellia. Oh my gosh, it's so clean!
Hey, kid. I'm putting together a crew.
Of course, didn't really talk about it before. Lando, as part of the crew, is awesome. Here is somewhat more Billy D. Williams attire as opposed to the pimp coat that he wears otherwise. And really, Star Wars, a pimp coat for Lando. I know it's a fur coat. It just looks kind of sleek for him. That's cool and all. But you got the one black male character wearing a pimp coat. It totally makes sense with the vibe that Lando had back in the original trilogy. But in 2018, I gotta wonder if you're gonna catch crap for that. But then again, you're probably gonna catch crap because it's a white male lead with another white male lead with a white female lead. Even though you got all these other characters around them that aren't. It's 2018, what can we say? Anyway, Gleason as Lando, I haven't really seen him in much. I think the main thing I've seen him in is Spider-Man Homecoming. So I'm looking forward to seeing how he handles Lando, but I have really very little preconception about him as an actor or his ability to portray this character. He doesn't look Lando to me in these sequences, but in those 4 little character posters that they put out, when he's got the costume on, that I'm assuming is this one, seen from a different view, that really looks more like Lando, I think he works well visually as Lando. So I think it really just depends. I really am hoping this is not a matter of, with Han Solo being, well, we just need a white dude. Or with Lando being, we just need a black dude who can pull off the mustache. I really hope that they went into them having the charisma to actually pick up where Harrison Ford and Billy D. Williams left off, or as a precursor to them, to really carry the characters forward. If it's just, oh, look, I guess it's Lando because it's a black dude with a mustache, that's not going to work any more than the artwork in Mace Windu, a Jedi of the Republic, worked for Mace Windu, where they were just like, oh, what does Mace Windu look like? Oh, he's a big black bald dude. No, he's Samuel L. Jackson. He should look something like Samuel L. Jackson, not a big black bald dude made out of mashed potatoes. Which is basically what the art in Mace Windu Jedi of the Republic did. There's got to be some consistency to a look for characters to keep the suspension of disbelief as something that is viable for your product, at least in my opinion. But as Dennis Miller would say, I could be wrong. All right, continuing. Now, I gotta wonder, and I gotta pause it here, I miss catching the character, but Thandie Newton's character. We're told the character's name is Val, which I think is actually kind of a missed opportunity, even though the character may be a little bit older here than we would expect, because how cool would it have been for that to have been Sana Solo? Sana Starros from the Marvel Comics to give us a connection between the Marvel stuff and this. You would think if they were setting it all up ahead of time, that would have been something they might have tried. On the other hand, there's a part of me that thinks, you know what? We still don't know why it is in canon, story group canon that is, that Lando was pissed off at Han and the whole, after what you pulled kind of thing. Kind of makes me wonder if Val is Val Calrissian, and he's going to pull something with her that's going to have it be a much more personal family thing with Lando being pissed off in Empire because of something that Han pulled with his sister. We'll see. It's very suspicious to me that we have Val here, who seems to be a human character with just a regular name, Val, not some apostrophe thing like Kira for Emilia Clarke, right? Q-I-apostrophe-R-A, like she's Klingon or something. Kira is how you perhaps are supposed to pronounce her name. Kapla Kira! But Val, just V-A-L, no apostrophes, nothing weird, no weird spelling. Really makes me wonder if they're trying to hide a last name of Calrissian behind that, since Lando is in the film. Now, granted, this goes back to the same thing where a lot of people immediately assumed and made the connection of, black female character that was supposedly married to Han, although it was for a job and everything. Sana must be related to Lando. It's easy to fall into that trap of, the black characters must be related to each other because there are so few in Star Wars. But now that Star Wars is getting more diverse, hopefully we can get away from that. I really do think that, though, the missing last name gives us perhaps a clue. At least I kind of hope it does. And it's not just, hey, let's just throw in another character, unless this character really is a strong one. I mean, we don't know much about Val at this point. I want each member of the crew to feel distinct, kind of like we got with Rogue One, where each member of the Rogue One team really felt distinct, even though Baze didn't get nearly as much development as some of the other ones did. All right, continuing.
You in? That's it.
With similar shots. So, everywhere's got a Canto Bight now. Everywhere's got a Canto Casino, or a Maz's Castle, or a Mos Eisley Cantina now. You just got the high-end version in the recent films, rather than the slumming it version in the previous films. It seems a little odd, but at the same time, how many places like that are there in real life? So, if you got a heist tale or a high rollers being snookered kind of tale, it kind of makes sense in this case for there to be that background. I would argue that probably the placement of that type of ritzy atmosphere in sort of a casino or sort of a posh, entertainment type place probably will wind up making more sense in Solo than it did with the Canto Bight sequences in The Last Jedi. Because the Canto Bight sequences in The Last Jedi could have been anywhere that they were going to try to find the Master Codebreaker and wound up meeting DJ. It didn't have to really be Canto Bight, except to provide a little bit of the richness versus the seediness underneath in order to help develop Rose's character. But that's a whole different film, right? Right. Emilia Clarke. This is the concern for me with Emilia Clarke, and it's kind of the same thing that I have for Woody Harrelson. Am I going to see the film and see Woody Harrelson, or am I going to see the film and see his character of Tobias Beckett? I think Tobias is what they're saying his first name is going to be. I really need to be able to see him as that character. It took me a while, even with Hunger Games, to see him as that character and not as just Woody Harrelson playing Woody Harrelson, drinking a lot. Kind of like it takes, not much of a stretch of the imagination to see Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark, a womanizing guy with a lot of drinking going on and an ego. Golly, that's a stretch for Robert Downey Jr., at least back in the day, right? Now he seems like there's actually a distinction between the two. But originally the casting was like, oh yeah, that's him. He's basically Tony Stark without the armor. And I don't think Tony Stark has been in prison or anything like that. But Emilia Clarke's thing for me is I really hope she distinguishes herself here as Kira. When I look at Daisy Ridley, I see Rey. When I look at John Boyega, I see Finn. When I look at Mark Hamill, I see Luke. They are such, and there's such an intertwining between the actor and the character they played that it's almost inseparable, which is actually probably part of my issue with Aaron Reich as Han, because I see Han as Harrison Ford all the time. With her, it's a little bit different, though, because I see her, and I don't really see a particular character, even though I probably should be seeing Daenerys Targaryen, right, from Game of Thrones. The thing about Daenerys for me in Game of Thrones, and everybody gives her so much praise for playing Daenerys, I kind of feel like Daenerys Targaryen in Game of Thrones, both in the books, don't read the latter ones, they're a slog, but the early ones are fine. Daenerys Targaryen's arc is interesting. The character development is interesting. I'm not sure there's anything about her performance as Daenerys Targaryen that is really interesting at all. A lot of times she comes off seeming as though she has only a few emotional states she's expected to play, and it's the events around the character that are interesting, not so much her portrayal. And then I think back to the terrible casting decision in Terminator Genesis of her as Sarah Connor. She could have been great as an action hero. That was not supposed to be Sarah Connor. It may have worked. But she was supposed to be cast as playing basically the reincarnation in that era, so to speak, of Linda Hamilton's Sarah Connor. No. Headley, the person who plays Cersei, was able to recapture Sarah Connor better for Sarah Connor Chronicles from Linda Hamilton on television than she was in Genesis. She was a very bland, blank slate almost type of character in Genesis because of that performance. And the script kind of sucked, too. So far, I haven't seen anything she's been in where it seems like her performance defines the character, and it intertwines so much with her as a performer that she is distinctly always going to be in my mind as that character. Like, of all the characters in Game of Thrones, when I see artwork, say, from Fantasy Flight Games for Daenerys, I probably buy that more than for almost any other character, more than the portrayal on the TV show, because she has done nothing to connect herself mentally with that performance to me, with that character integrally from the series. So I'm hoping that this is the opportunity for her to perform a character in something that is a big blockbuster type of thing, and such a beloved franchise, that she is linked to that character so that we think of her in the same vein as Mark Hamill as Luke, Harrison Ford as Han, Carrie Fisher as Leia, that you could only see her as Kira. But we'll see. We'll see. Either way, kapla on the opportunity to be in a Star Wars film. You've done well in Game of Thrones, in theory. Again, I would kind of argue on that point. And Genesis was a flop, so now's a chance to shoot for the stars, or Star Wars again. To continue.
Who knows what you really are?
What's that?
Oh, shit.
Get ready. Thought we were in trouble there for a second, but it's fine. We're fine.
Sorry, I cut a little short there. Alright, let's turn this back around and get a little bit more into just general thoughts from these. I'll be honest, I have not been very excited for Solo. When they announced it, I thought it was a bad idea. I thought it was going to be one of those things where, oh, here we go again, more young Solo stuff. Do we need young Solo stuff? Not sure that we do. What can be impactful in it? Who are they going to cast? Just a lot of things to make me say, not sure this is the best choice. Probably ought to more go with something that's based on an event and maybe an original cast like Rogue One was. Even if it's a story that Legends told a lot, maybe not so much with the Han Solo stuff. Maybe a Kenobi story. Maybe a Yoda story, but Han Solo, I don't know. Then all the troubles they had with production, of course, the original directors being booted, basically, and all that. Not all that great. All the stuff, the speculation of why exactly is it that it took us this long to get the first previews and see the first video footage. Definitely also a concern. And then, of course, the casting was the big thing. So I'm still not excited, really, for Solo. I'm more interested now than I was before the trailers, because everything except the cast, to me, screams, hey, this could be a cool Star Wars film. To me, it feels like it has the same sense of what we got with Rogue One, right? Rogue One didn't have me excited all that much to begin with in the first place. Then we got the teasers. I started to get more interested, and it felt like this was the Star Wars universe, but not necessarily the Star Wars universe as it felt in the original prequel or sequel trilogies. It feels a little grittier and different. And I get the same feeling out of this. It feels a little grittier or different. Kind of like reading the novel Scoundrels by Timothy Zahn feels different than reading the Thrawn trilogy by Timothy Zahn. Same author, different sensibility because you've got one that's sort of the typical Star Wars epic trilogy, and another that is basically a heist tale. They're different genres applied to Star Wars. So I think that works well. I'm intrigued, as I said, about the possibility of seeing the Maw, seeing Kessel, seeing the Kessel Run, seeing the early Falcon, seeing how Han gets the Falcon, presumably, seeing how Han winds up partnering with Chewie, although it kind of makes me wonder about that line about how he was kicked out for thinking for himself. Well, unless thinking for himself was him saying slavery is wrong or whatever and saving Chewie, they are going to be changing that part of his backstory that had existed in Legends for so long, which is fine. The idea that he was in the Academy, though, got booted out. The fact that he was trying to be an Imperial and then was not was at least similar to what we got in Legends. The idea of the Maw around Kessel is something, again, that got its start in Legends. So it's kind of cool to see the way that they're drawing these things from Legends. I mean, they said early on they weren't going to reinvent everything. A lot of the places and situations may be similar depending on how they fit with current storytelling. So to see that, Kessel, Maw, and stuff seems like it's still pretty much the way that it was or similar to it, I think that works for the most part. But I'm still not all that excited about it because of my misgivings about the casting choices. But I'm trying to give the benefit of the doubt and reserve judgment till we actually see it. Because we don't really see enough here to get much beyond just visuals and vocal intonation. We don't really get to see them grabbing the characters and really running with it. But I would argue that we can use the recent Star Trek reboot films, so Star Trek, Star Trek Into Darkness, and Star Trek Beyond, as a almost perfect case in point of the three different main ways you could do recasting of characters. You got all kinds of people out there saying, well, you shouldn't be worried about them recasting Han Solo because they recasted other characters. Just think of Darth Vader. Dave Prowse in the suit, James Earl Jones doing the voice, then it's young Jake Lloyd, and then it's Hayden Christensen, and Hayden was in the suit some. So what is your problem? I don't think that is a valid comparison, because we're not talking about the same kind of timing here, presumably, or the same age difference. As I said, Aaron Reich is about the same age now as Han is supposed to be in A New Hope, 29. So how do you get from that version of Han to the other version of Han? That is very different than the casting choice of Jake Lloyd to Hayden Christensen. There is a 10-year gap, or 11-year gap in terms of age, because of when his age is during the year. It'll make your brain hurt. He's 9 in Phantom Menace, 20 in Attack of the Clones. There are 10 years in between. It all has to do with birthday timing in the year. Kind of like with Jyn Erso not actually being 22. She's more like 21, even though some sources were saying 22. Anyway, I think there's a bigger incentive to doing casting changes when you've got a character going from 9 or 10 to 20 than if they had, say, recast Anakin between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith when there's only a 3-year difference in between them. That would have been more jarring. Jake Lloyd to Hayden Christensen was kind of a given that you're going to have to recast Anakin or wait a long time to actually film the second prequel film. Dave Prowse was in the suit. James Earl Jones did the voice. The other one they also mentioned, Sebastian Shaw, of course, being older Anakin when he dies. The feeble, crusty old white man, as Hooper X put it in Chasing Amy. But seeing Shaw at the time was the only time we had ever seen Anakin / Vader with anything but the suit, with the mixture of a guy in a suit and somebody doing voice work. So I don't think that's a valid comparison either. It's much more valid to look at basically the idea of recreating classic characters in a similar time frame, which is basically what we got with the Star Trek reboots. Again, I'd say there are 3 different ways you could do it that you can pull perfect examples of from the Star Trek reboots. One thing that you could do is absolutely flippin' nail it. You could get somebody who not only looks the part, but also has the mannerisms and performance that are absolutely going to make you believe this really could be a younger version or an alternate reality version of the character we saw before. Zachary Quinto is a case in point for that. Zachary Quinto is amazing as Spock. He nails the Leonard Nimoy young Spock to an insane degree. You could believe that they were the same character. And of course, eventually he would grow up to be the older Leonard Nimoy Spock, And when you see them interact, you can believe one is the younger version of the other. They absolutely nailed them. People were saying Quinto should be Spock way before there was ever any casting or news about the idea of a Star Trek reboot. Quinto is a perfect example. I don't see anybody so far that makes me think in Solo we're getting that type of recasting at all. I don't see Ehrenreich as I think I'm saying his last name right, Alden. I don't see him as being able to be that for Harrison Ford's Solo. I don't see Gleason able to be that for, am I saying it right? Gleason? Glover. I don't know why I'm saying Gleason. Glover! Donald Glover! As Lando. See, I haven't cared enough to even pay attention to the names. It took me basically until last night to try to figure out how to say Ehrenreich, and I'm still maybe saying it wrong. Just hasn't done it. Anyway, Glover, not Gleason. Don't know why I said Gleason before. Probably because of Donald Gleason as Hux. But Glover, I don't see Glover as Lando as being someone I could believe as Billy D. Williams Lando. But we haven't heard him speak yet. We haven't seen the way he swaggers yet. We've only seen his look. And the look is slightly different enough to kind of make me wonder. But we don't know yet. But I don't really see him as that Zachary Quinto level unless he really nails it in the film. Then you've got sort of the far other end of the spectrum, which is the, are you serious? How is this person supposed to be an earlier version of this other character? That is basically what most, I think, of the cast of the new Star Trek films are like. When I look at Chris Pine Kirk, I don't see Shatner Kirk. When I look at Zoe Saldana as Uhura, I don't see Nichelle Nichols Uhura. Anton Yelchin as Chekhov, not even remotely like Walter Koenig as Chekhov. Yes, I had to stop and think about that, hence the little pause there. And when it came to Sulu, they basically went, because I mean, at least with the other ones, are like, okay, we want a Russian-speaking white dude for Chekhov. We'll get a Russian-speaking white dude because that'll kind of work. We're going to get a white dude for Kirk who's got some swagger. We're going to get a black woman for Uhura. That works and everything. Not necessarily African-American, because she could be cast from some other country, so African-American wouldn't make sense. We'll just say a black woman for Uhura. That works. And then they were like, Sulu. We're not going to really bother to worry about whether the ethnicity is actually right. We're just going to grab an Asian guy. And he performed the role well, but anyone who really pays attention to differences in ethnicity within Asian culture, because Asia's a big-ass place, even East Asia and Southeast Asia, big-ass place, they didn't go with someone of the same ethnicity between George Takei and the new guy they got in to play Sulu. Now, granted, their argument is it doesn't really matter because he's representing, Asian culture as a member of the crew in terms of representation. Right. But if you're talking about, if this is a Star Trek movie where all the characters were Asian characters, you're damn right it would matter in terms of representation whether we have a Japanese character, Chinese character, Vietnamese character, Korean character, and so on and so on and so on. But in that case, they said, not a big deal. But in all those cases, particularly with Chekhov, I don't see that character as played by that person as the equivalent of what we got with the original actors. I mean, I can buy them because it's a new alternate reality, and that's just the way it is, and we're going to see them in multiple films to get used to them. But in no way, even now that we've got Star Trek Beyond, do I look at Chris Pine and go, yep, that's a young William Shatner. No, not even remotely. They're playing the part, and they're doing their own take on the part, and they are somewhat demographically fitting the part, but do they recapture the original performance? Not even remotely. Though granted, there wasn't a whole lot there in some cases to begin with. I mean, Uhura barely got really anything to do in the original Trek series, and really barely anything to do in the original crew movies. Whereas the new Uhura, Nyota Uhura, who now has a first name from the newer films, has a hell of a lot to do and is a more dynamic character. But we didn't really get that, so maybe that's where the distinction is for her character. But someone like Kirk, we've seen him a ton. And Pine and Shatner aren't the same Kirk in terms of performance. So there's that end of the spectrum. Just cast somebody who demographically kind of fits, and let them do their own take on the character. It doesn't matter if we can see them as equivalent characters, unlike, again, Quinto at the other end of the spectrum, where it's dead on. But I think what I'm hoping for with this, because I don't see Glover or Aramik, I almost said Gleason again, being able to be the Quinto level. But I am hoping they're also not the Pine, Saldana, etc. level of performance, where there just doesn't feel like there's much connection at all. I'm hoping instead for the middle ground that is perfectly represented in the Star Trek reboot films by Carl Urban as Leonard H. Bones McCoy, right? When you look at him, initially you're like, I guess he's doing his best impression of Bones, but I'm not sure. He's not quite as weathered and, I don't know about this. And then you hear him speak. And then you see his mannerisms. And Urban absolutely nails the mannerisms, tone of voice, speaking patterns and such, and performance of DeForest Kelley as McCoy. It is awesome. It's an amazing transformation. But just looking at him wouldn't give you that sense. You have to see the full performance and everything that goes with it down to the nuances. And he captures the nuances almost perfectly. It's astounding. I'm hoping that that's what we get here with Lando and Han. That right now it feels like more of that far end of the spectrum with like a Chris Pine, where you're like, hashtag not my Solo, hashtag not my Lando, and that sort of thing. And God, I hope that doesn't become a thing. And feeling like it's way far away from, that's my Solo, that's my Lando, Quinto level kind of stuff. But my hope is that when we actually see the film, what we're going to get is something more like Carl Urban's McCoy. That once we see them in action, and not just these stupid little quick clips that we get completely out of context in the trailers, once we see them in their element and get to see the entire performance, that we're going to have these moments and these nuances to the performance that make us say, aha, that is a Carl Urban McCoy Solo Orlando. That is that middle ground of, I may not look the part, but damn it, I have captured it so well that I defy you not to constantly think of me as the character you saw played by that other actor, whether it's Harrison Ford, Billy D. Williams, or DeForest Kelley. I'm hoping for that, but I'm not seeing anything that leans me in that direction yet. We need to see more, like maybe some clips of the film rather than just trailers, to maybe start to give us that sense, but it's really going to come down to the final film. I mean, until we get to the end of May and actually see Solo, a Star Wars story, I'm not sure we're going to be able to make any kind of definitive judgments on that, and I bet you it's going to be just as divisive in terms of thoughts on the performance as the way that people thought of certain aspects of The Last Jedi, though maybe not as a whole. So, cautiously optimistic, but not all that excited. I still am kind of like, But then again, I was like that for Rogue One up until I saw it, and then I loved the film itself. And for a while there, it was jockeying with The Force Awakens up there at the top of my list. It's not anymore. Now it's sort of that second tier, because for me, Last Jedi is up at the top. I know, controversial, whatever. But I really enjoyed it, but didn't feel going into it like I had a lot of excitement for it. I was like, let's see how this goes. I kind of feel that way for Solo right now, but I'm definitely more in the disinterest for Solo than I ever was in terms of disinterest for Rogue One. So I'm having to come from a lower level of interest up to that, let's give it a shot, boy, I hope the film is good level, and hopefully I'll come out with, dude, that was great, as my reaction, but we're going to have to find out, little over 3 months from now when it's actually in theaters. For now, I think the trailers look more promising than I would have expected, though I'm not sure why I wouldn't have expected it to look as promising, and they look very promising as a Star Wars story. Do they look promising as the story of Han and Lando in the context of that Star Wars story? Maybe not. I'm really hoping that I don't go to the movie and feel as though this was a great Star Wars film if only they hadn't tried to make these two actors' characters existing ones and had just gone with them portraying original characters with similar characteristics. I want to go in and see Carl Urban. I don't want to go in and see Chris Pine, Zoe Saldana, and so forth. But again, that's just me. Alright, so, folks have asked for my thoughts. There are my thoughts, probably a little more long-winded than they probably needed to be. I apologize for that, but just kind of going off the cuff here. having seen the trailers again just now. And if you got any thoughts, feel free to put them in the comments. If you have questions for future vlogs, feel free to put them in the comments as well, because it's been a while since we've done a Q&A. And if you are a Patreon supporter who are part of that highest tier, the $10 and up tier, make sure that you go onto the Patreon and put any questions into the collection thread for this month so I can answer them in your exclusive Q&A for next month. For now, I will say adieu for those of you who don't want to necessarily see what that setup looks like. This is the end of the main content of the blog. Thank you for watching. May the Force be with you, and I'll catch you next time. If you do want to see that, that's what we're going to do right now. So let's spin it around and take a look. In case you were wondering, I said I'd come back to this at the end as to what you're seeing here. Usually, and for most of this video, what you'll see is me facing the opposite direction. The computer is on the same desk right now, but usually it's turned a complete 180, or basically a 180, pointing back that direction. So all those bookshelves that you usually see in the background are back that way, and usually I'm facing this way. And what you see over here, basically, this is the TV I've mentioned a couple of times for those who are looking for one. This is the PlayStation branded 3D display. It's not marketed usually with televisions. You don't see it for sale as much anymore, but you can still find it some places if you're really digging for it or if you're checking on eBay. But it's basically just a small 3D television. Big TVs that are 3D, pretty expensive, and they're not making them in the US anymore. But this is a decent size, and for me it works because you'll notice there's a closet door over there. That's the closet that's got all the Star Wars game stuff in here, in a bunch of tackle boxes. You can't really see there without me putting some light inside there. Like so. Maybe you can sort of see all the tackle boxes up in here. But anyway, that's that 3D monitor. It works fairly well, and it works with those Sony active stereoscopic 3D glasses. You actually turn them on, you charge them up, and they filter out so that each eye sees what it's supposed to see. But otherwise, I mean, this is sort of my old school kind of setup here, because you'll notice that's the PlayStation 3 camera. The PlayStation 3 is right here, and then there is a Kinect from the Xbox 360 limited edition Star Wars setup that came with Kinect Star Wars. Honestly, with the desk, there's not even room to use the Kinect. It's just still hooked up in here because where else am I going to put it? And then aside from an older Roku and an HDMI switcher, underneath, that's where my Wii U, some basic speakers, and the Xbox is, and there's the PS3 there. So I've basically taken all the old school last generation gaming stuff and just shoved it into this room because my main gaming setup is my bedroom, or our bedroom, I should say, before my wife goes, "What? I give you a couch for a bedroom." Basically, that is where all the new stuff is, and then I put the older stuff in here, just so that basically I can have the PS3 as a Blu-ray and 3D Blu-ray player, and really just so I can have a place for the Xbox 360, which makes sense because it is my Star Wars office. As you'll notice here, we've got some of those deco lights. That's the Vader lightsaber, and up above it, the Vader face, so it kind of looks like Vader's coming out of the wall there. And then alongside that, right next to it here up on the wall, kind of hard to see, let me turn. That is a t-shirt, or a jersey actually, from the Buffalo Bison's minor league baseball team out of Buffalo, New York. They do a Star Wars night every year, and a buddy of mine, Brian Patrick Stoyle, yes, another person with the middle name Patrick, awesome, Brian Patrick Stoyle, he helps coordinate that every year, and for years now, they've had me do the voice of Palpatine for all these pre-recorded video segments and battle segments out on the field. So I do some voice work, record the audio, send it to them, and a while back, as a thank you for that, they decided to send me some of the stuff from those Star Wars nights, including some of these jerseys. There's a few of them, but that's the one that I figured worked better with Darth Vader up there because they're all black. So, you know, if you've been wondering what it looks like the other direction, what I've been looking like, and what you've been sometimes seeing in the reflection of those laser discs up on the wall, why is there a Darth Vader reflection sometimes in the laser disc? That's why. Just a basic setup over here. But it works pretty well. I use it, of course, for stuff like this, which is really the only time I've done it so far. But when I'm recording those Patreon audio commentaries, this is how I do it. I basically unplug the speakers, because they're just plugged up with a regular, like, speaker cord, like an earphone cord, basically. Plug that back in there. And what I wind up doing is I unplug that and plug in some old iPod headphones and stick one in this ear and leave the other one out. And then on the PS3, I'm playing the Blu-ray of the Clone Wars or whatever it is, so that it's playing on the TV with the closed captions or the subtitles on, so I can read it and sort of hear it while I'm talking. My microphone is right here, and then the computer's right there, so I'm able to see the waveforms in Audacity as I'm recording it. So for those who've ever wondered, you know, this is the other side of the setup. I don't use it very often, but it works well for audio commentaries, and apparently, if this has gone well, it works well for reactions, and we'll continue using it that way. As always, thank you for watching. May the Force be with you, and I'll catch you next time on The Voice of Reason or Lack Thereof.